Hey, so this is Greg from the future. As I'm editing this podcast to go up, it's now April 7th. I don't even remember when we recorded this podcast, but I'm pretty sure it was in February. And I just realized that I don't know where our intro files went. So you'll hear me mention the fact that there's going to be an intro in like the next 20 seconds, but there definitely isn't an intro for this episode. So sorry for that. And also, I'll reiterate it, even though I also mention it. It's a little rough because it is our first podcast, and I definitely think I talk too much. But enjoy, and hopefully you're here for 3 or 4 episodes from now where it actually starts to take on form and get better. Bye. What do you call this movie?
Dirt.
Yeah, which is kind of...
I don't know why I keep thinking it's called
Dirt. It's
Dirt.
like... It's a false name that's representative of what the movie was like, which is dirt.
Well, yeah, but they're also in the dirt a lot because I guess it's an
Well,
archaeological
they're digging, which
dig.
is why it's called The Dig.
Yeah. So, but in my mind, I'm like, oh, dirt. Okay. Yeah.
What did you think? Give me your honest thoughts. I mean, I guess that's the whole point of this.
Okay, but we should talk about the viewing experience because
BT Dubs, this was probably already mentioned in the intro, but this is our first episode of the 52, so
yeah, first time
bear
podcasting.
with us on like format and actually talking and any kind of audio issues that might
take place up. And I'm not like I'm not super coherent all the time. My meds are getting right.
Also, this is the first time being recorded ever for anything, really.
Yeah, I've been recorded for stuff, I guess, but not a podcast. Anyway, the way we viewed this isn't normal circumstances. I would never watch a movie in 2 parts just because I don't believe in doing that.
Because it just messes up everything. Like, it messes up the flow. You start to forget things that happened in the first half that you saw.
But also, it's disrespectful to the piece.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, we watched half together, and it was on my birthday, which was like, I don't know how many days ago. And then I would never normally stop, but it was not an enjoyable experience. I remember watching and being like, fuck, there's an hour left. I can't do this right now. And then I finished the rest earlier today by myself. Yes. So anyway, would you like to talk about like what it's about first? I guess let them know if they don't know.
Hold on.
I pulled the wiki page up, but I feel like
so
it
then
would just
why
seem like
are you
I'm
asking
reading.
me?
Because you say things more succinctly and without having to read like a whole...
I was really just going to read the synopsis from Google, really.
Okay, then do that, because I'm not going to read the whole plot. Because I guess that... Yeah.
All right, so The Dig... Google's description for it says, in the late 1930s, wealthy landowner Edith Pretty hires amateur archaeologist Basil Brown to investigate the mounds on her property in England. He and his team discover a ship from the Dark Ages while digging up a burial ground. Which I think doesn't even really describe what the fuck happens in this movie.
I mean, not really. I mean, I guess, like, with not talking about, like, the stuff that happens between the people and, like, relationships and shit, but a little bit, I guess.
I don't even know if I knew that her name was Edith.
No, because they called her Miss Pretty the whole time.
Every time.
But you know what the really crazy part is that I realized, like, at the very end? It's a true story.
Yeah, but I knew that.
I didn't know
at the
that.
beginning, and you just didn't read it.
I must have not read it. I don't know what was wrong. And then I looked at it, I was like, what the fuck? I'm like, this is real. Because last night, Greg texted me, and he was like, this doesn't make any... Or he said this movie makes no sense.
The movie is just a clusterfuck of, I don't know. And the problem is that it is a true story, and it's based on a book. So I don't know where along the line it falls apart. Is the actual real life story not that great? Is the romanticization of it in the novel where things start breaking up? Or is it whoever wrote this movie that really just doesn't even understand the way humans work almost?
Well, I want to know how long the book is, because I've noticed when there's adaptations, like typically they're trying to make things a little more succinct, and that might explain why we were watching it. Like in the first half, we were like, why does it feel like it's a screenplay with 5 pages missing every 15 minutes? Because it looked like a real movie, but then when Netflix does stuff, sometimes it's like, this seems like a real movie, but it's not, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's not a real character, like, you know, like a period piece. Like, why is Carey Mulligan in this? She just looked frail the entire time. She was just walking around with a cane. I was like,
But then, okay, quick rundown of the movie. Mrs. Pretty lives in like a manor in some kind of rural area of England. Her husband's a colonel with either the RAF or some part of Britain's military pre-World War II. He dies. I don't even remember
I
if
think
they
he was already
mentioned whether
dead.
he died in action or just previous to the actions of the movie. They've always had like these weird man-made hills on their property. She calls an excavator. That's Basil Brown. I don't know why English people refer to Basil as Basil. Don't ask me. He comes. They negotiate his wages. She's not paying enough. He leaves. She pays enough. He comes back. He doesn't want to excavate the actual mound that she wants to excavate because he thinks that people have already stolen from there. Like 5 minutes later, for whatever reason, he's like, maybe they didn't steal from there because the shape is different, so let's dig in there anyway. They start digging. They get to a point where they need structures to support it.
Oh my God, that was my favorite part.
And the people leave to go get the stuff to help build the supports for it. Mrs. Pretty goes to look at it, and he goes, don't go any closer because there isn't any structure holding that up.
Yeah, it's not
And then
structurally
2
sound.
seconds later, the guy swings a shovel at the part that he just said wasn't supported and gets buried under like a ton of dirt. And basically almost drowns in dirt.
And I was like...
Which is why the movie should be called Dirt.
Yeah, that's why it escapes my mind that it's called The Dig. But yeah, he just like... And she doesn't even like... say like, why the fuck did you do that? She's like, are you okay? Like, you know, trying to help him. Like, he's an idiot. Like,
he just told you, don't even go near it because it's so structurally unsound. And then he immediately swings basically a pickaxe at the part that's unsound. So after that, it's just a long, drawn out sort of like it's just a dig. It's the dig. Like,
well, no, but there's a couple things that this is the thing. Okay.
Well, I don't know if we should describe like the entirety of the movie.
I mean, but this part's not like every, you know, but this is something they should know. So when you romanticize like usually like historical things, like they try to make it interesting with romance, right? And like sexual
which there
intrigue.
also seem to be like the slightest bit of tension.
Well, that's what I'm trying to tell them. Wait, there's a couple people. So Miss Pretty and Basil Brown, they have like this weird sexual tension, even though he is married, and his wife and him have the strangest relationship because she comes to visit. They don't have sex, this is not the only marriage.
I don't even think they kissed.
No, I don't really think so. And you can tell that he's like, my ugly ass wife, and like Miss Pretty's here. She's pretty. She's a Carey Mulligan, so I will say that's cool. But that's not the only.
I don't even know if he thinks of her like that.
I
because
think
there's
a
not
little
enough
bit.
Actual talking.
They're
between
British
them.
though, and this is like old timey. These were the nuances.
But
I
that's
was
the
picking up
problem
on.
is that it is in such an older period. Even in recent history where they weren't very affectionate back then, really.
Yeah, but there's another marriage, I guess, that we see between two people, and they definitely don't have sex ever. Like, he was like...
Okay, I think that guy's gay.
He might be, because he freaked out about his wife. Well, I'm assuming they've had sex. But he was like, saw her in the bath, and he was like freaked out. And then he did this really toxic masculine thing where he's like, well, I could have been one of the other guys in the house. And then
That's true. So we're talking about Peggy at this point.
Peggy,
who he refers to as Margaret.
And she's like, my name is Peggy.
Definitely likes to go by Peggy, which you can already tell that their relationship isn't clearly that solid if he doesn't even refer to her by her preferred name. But she was taking a bath after being covered in dirt all day. She had the door unlocked by accident. They're renting a room in a pub. So it's a public, it's sort of like a hotel or a hostel. And he walks in and freaks out. He's like, oh my God, you're naked, and leaves. And when she comes back into the room, he's like, I could have been anyone.
Yeah, and then she tries to be playful and like unrobe and like try to get like naked, and he's like, what are you doing? I gotta take a bath now. Like,
he also said we can't make a scene here.
It's in their own bedroom. In
a bedroom that has double beds, which he said was just the way it was, but I feel like he almost asked for it that way. But he definitely, it seemed like he was closeted because there was this other guy on the dig that kept having these long, romantic, pausing glances at him.
Whoa, I didn't catch that at all.
When at one point, right before Peggy finds the first gold artifact that they find, it was like a small gem, like wrought in gold. He and another dude on the dig were lifting a piece out of the ground, and they had the longest sensual eye contact I've ever seen on anybody just picking up a piece of ancient history out of the ground.
I thought they
and
were.
he like the way he told him we lived here, like whatever, was like weirdly sexual. And then at some point the husband gets sent to the lab in London, and
Yes.
that guy is going with him.
Okay.
And then when the husband finally comes back at the end of the movie, he is at the pub looking for his wife. They're having drinks again. But that guy says, I'm getting up to go. And the husband follows him. And you see the guy at the end of the hallway peeking at him and then running away like jauntily.
Okay. I think I missed this, but I will tell you one thing I did notice is that when Peggy like ended it with him, he didn't really put up much of a fight.
Because he's gay.
Because he's gay. This makes sense now.
Because the whole thing is that at the beginning you're like, this guy is just so obsessed with his work.
Yeah.
He's like one of those. He has this hot wife who's like an awkward geologist, but she's still like sexier than anybody else there because it's just a bunch of grumpy looking men.
Well, yes.
And you think that he ignores her because he's obsessed with his work, but then there's this weird attraction to this other guy.
Okay, that's
and
fair.
you're like, well, clearly it's not just an obsession with work. You just don't like her. And he offers to learn to love her. And she says no, because it's not worth it.
Well, that's true, but also she's got the hots for Edith's cousin comes to...
Which I also didn't understand, besides the fact that he was just a virile young man at the dig.
Yeah, he was hot. Like, I was like...
But that's it.
Yeah, but I thought it was so funny the way they talk about it. Like, Cousin Edith. He's like, Cousin... Just the way they talked was so weird. But he was like sleeping out in the woods because he said the house was too hot. He was like kind of like feral. Like,
that was weird.
Yeah, but like
sleeping in a tent in the woods because the house is hot.
Yeah, and he was going into the Air Force, I guess. That whole pilot scene was weird too.
Where he crashes and dies. By the way, guys, I guess we're just going off the rails. We're just gonna bring up random things that pop into our head about why this movie was just weird. Or things that were interesting.
Okay, that's fair. But wait, I just also should mention really quick too, because we didn't tell them, that Edith and her husband were actually, I guess they came on later onto the dig because it was just Basil at first. But I think...
You said Edith and her husband.
Not Edith, I'm sorry. Peggy and her husband.
I don't even remember her husband's name.
Whatever, whoever he is. It doesn't really matter.
Also, the only reason she was even brought to the dig is because of the sexist... archaeologist that was in control of the dig, because he basically just wanted a woman to be there because they're lighter weight.
Well, yes, but also we should mention that it was initially just Basil Brown, and this guy came on, and he was kind of a dick because he was like, Basil's not qualified. We're gonna give this stuff to like the British Museum, etc., etc. Like and they had to ask. I don't know. Miss Pretty didn't really want them there. Yeah. So. I don't know if it's like the British Museum was the people who were like the head of it or what have you.
There was a local museum and the British Museum, and both of them wanted dibs on what was basically Miss Pretty's property.
Yeah.
But the British Museum technically gets control over the site because of laws in England.
Yeah, and what's really weird too is they thought it was like a Viking ship or whatever, and they were all like treating it like, oh, this is important, but it's not a big deal. And once they realized it was like Anglo-Saxon, they were like, oh my god, these people had culture.
Yeah, they were important.
Yeah,
they weren't just savages.
What the fuck? I was like,
what? Just because they're the precursors to your culture.
It was really messed up. Honestly, I was like, this seems well, not racist, but like. Maybe a little.
Also, CW, I don't even know what his actual name is. That's the archaeologist who was in charge of everything after the British Museum took over. So fucking annoying.
He's annoying.
So pretentious. Thinks he knows everything about everything. Denies the fact that Basil might know even a minute fact about history.
Yeah. Even
though he's known the entire time that this boat is older than shit. Like, it is... the oldest boat found in England at that point. And he keeps telling him it's not, even after he shows him evidence, after shit starts crumbling because it's been so compressed over so long. It was
a really rough thing to watch. And then also Miss Pretty, I don't
It's
know
just dying.
she's
just
dying.
dying the
We
whole
don't know
time.
why though.
We don't know
what's
why,
wrong with
besides the
her.
fact that she might have had like a birth defect in one of the valves in her heart. But I don't even know how they figured that out in that time period. This dude just connected her to an ancient computer, saw a readout, which was a bunch of squiggles on a piece of paper, and said, "You're dying."
And
It's
she was
not
just
heartburn.
progressively falling apart over the film. She was like sitting there in a lawn chair with like an umbrella. She's like,
And
"Do you want some
barley
mint
water.
water? Barley water." That's what it was. She's like, "Peggy, do you want some barley water?" I was like, so she was just hobbling around with her fucking cane, and her son's kind of annoying too. His name is Robert.
The timeline of the movie is non-existent. You don't know how many days have passed.
No.
You don't know how many weeks have passed. You don't know if it's been months. All you know is that eventually they unearth the entire top layer of the ship. But you see her go from being like a sprightly young woman with heartburn to basically being dead at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
But how long did it take? Because like if you just look at the actual passage of time in the movie, it's only been like 6 days.
Yeah, that was the. Okay, I'm sorry.
She's constantly going to London. How long does that take in that time period? Where are they from? That's an entire day's worth of trip.
Yeah, she's saying like our dig is causing people in the town to be really interested. Like
People all over the country.
Yeah,
that
people
it was in
came
newspapers.
to visit. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I mean, I'm sorry that this like our description sounds all over the place, but really, this movie was like, like
It really felt as if every 15 to 20 minutes there was at least a 3-minute scene missing. It just kept progressing in a way that didn't make sense. It didn't give you enough time to actually care about the characters.
No.
Like, you didn't really care that she was dying, except for the fact that her son was sad.
Yeah, but I even found him to be like a very like caricature boy. Like there was a scene where I guess like
he was the boy's boy for like 1930.
Yeah, he's super annoying. And it's so weird. There's this scene where a pilot goes down. This is a random thing. I'm not going to
Which comes out of nowhere because there's an RAF base nearby. We've seen probably 3 or 4 flyovers by pilots training throughout the course of the movie so far. And then out of nowhere, you just hear sputtering. A single plane comes out of nowhere, which at this point, I thought it was like a German that got shot down. I did too.
I thought they were going to do something crazy.
That was going to be like, what was that movie? 1917?
Oh, yeah.
Where the plane crashes and the German goes crazy and kills him. I thought it was going to be some crazy twist like that.
Because they kept talking about the war.
It's just an RAF pilot who's doing his first solo flight. Somehow his plane fell to shit and he just crashed into the water and died.
That's what she was trying
to say.
But
he just crashed into the water and died. Why was it even there? The only reason that was even included was just to put more pressure on the fact that Rory was joining the RAF. Yes. But we don't even really care about Rory. He just rode in on a motorcycle one day.
Yeah, but we only care about him because he's going to have to take care of Robert because he's basically the orphaned.
But if he's going to the RAF, World War II wasn't that quick. Edith is basically on death's door.
Yeah, but he didn't know. Well, he didn't know, right? I don't know. It was weird. But the whole thing is the little boy comes running out like to see the whole scene. And then Peggy's like, don't worry, Miss, Edith or whatever. I'll just tell him that I'm not feeling well and he'll want to take care of me. And that's exactly what she does. And it's like the stupidest thing. She's like, oh my God, I feel faint, Robert. Like, what am I going to do? And he's like, you can lie down for a nap and I'll take you a glass of water. When I'm not feeling well,
I lie down and have a tall glass of water and then just walked away and held her hand.
A motherfucking plane just landed in the water. Like, I wouldn't give a fuck about you having a light headache. Like, are you serious right now? I could not with this movie. It was so boring in that English way. You know what I'm saying? You're like, ugh. It felt like so long for a 2-hour film that it could be really good. Like, I like period pieces.
And you know what? The actual design of the period was great. Like, the architecture looked great. The costumes were on point. Like, all of the clothing. Their accents were decent for the time period. Good actor. Ralph Fiennes, Carey Mulligan. I don't know about the other people, but I recognize them from other places.
That girl has definitely been in something. The one that plays
that's just
Peggy.
Lily James.
Okay, yeah. I was gonna say she's definitely someone. Yeah.
But she almost took over as the main character with an hour left in the movie.
Yeah, because I'm telling you, really, that break didn't feel like a weird break that we took because it really felt like two films.
It felt like a different movie.
Yeah.
We started off the focus on Basil and Miss Pretty.
Yes.
And at some point, after she found that first artifact, this movie was now about Peggy.
Yeah, about Peggy just
And
being an independent woman.
the side view of Mrs. Pretty now helping her be an independent woman, because she has that talk where she says, life is fleeting, I should know. And basically says, break up with your husband and go fuck my cousin.
Yes.
Because she even knew that she was into Rory, because she was looking at Rory's pictures on the kitchen after he went to the RAF to get, like, his medical examination. And she started trembling. She was so devoid of sensual affection that she began trembling at the sight of a picture of her.
It's really something. And I will say that the last 2 minutes, it's actually beautifully written, and you would almost give a fuck if the movie was good. Like, it was talking about life being fleeting.
And
like,
when the sun takes them sailing.
Yes.
In that way that he did,
it's
like
just
sailing through the cosmos.
Moment.
That was a beautiful moment, which was intercut with Rory and Peggy fucking in a field.
And they're hot, so, like, I'm about it.
But that's not... We're having an emotional moment where Edith's son, as like an 8-year-old, is taking command of the fact that his mother is dying. And he's helping her through the catharsis of the fact that she won't be able to take care of her son. She is going to die. In terms of this movie, it's almost imminent.
Yeah.
And he is taking her sailing through the cosmos in this most ancient ship. And they're flying through the stars. And he's like, you know, we have to take the queen to meet the king. Time passes differently. Eventually, I'll sail up and find you again.
It's beautiful. I'm getting chills you talking about it.
And then 2 seconds later, Rory is just fucking riding Peggy, bro, in the middle of a field. And she's like gnawing on his neck. I
honestly kind of feel like those things go together, though. I mean, that might be...
But it really didn't. It was almost graphic, the difference in tone.
That's because I understand carnal desire. I don't... That could be the nymph in me, but we've had this movie that was literally devoid of emotion. Like, now we're finally getting it. We're getting the sex that we wanted. We want, like, the sexuality, sensuality. We get her son kind of not being annoying for, like, the first time ever. I give a fuck that she's dying all of a sudden. I don't know. I kind of think it
Basil's
worked.
even there.
Yeah.
He's steering the ship.
But it's just that it's not earned. Because you're like, wow, did I have to sit through 2 hours of this for this moment? Like, not really. Like, not
Could have been a short film. Just
short film.
Knowing that she was dying and then having her son steer the boat or whatever.
I would have been about that. Yeah.
But the fact that we sat through probably, I don't even know the runtime of the movie, but probably 2 hours before we saw this.
I couldn't imagine watching this in a theater. I see why it's on Netflix. Because if I didn't have my phone or something to keep me, I couldn't. This was just not a good time. But yeah, this was...
They tried to make it dramatic that World War II was happening. And even though we know exactly how devastating World War II is, it somehow wasn't dramatic enough because of the way they portrayed it in this movie.
We should talk about how Greg only understands how devastating World War II was, because I don't really perceive time and events in the way
Actually,
that they are.
I think it was really interesting that they referred to World War I as the Great War, which is accurate.
The one.
But they did call it the Great War because they didn't know what obviously they don't know what happens in the future, but World War II was technically a greater loss of life, and it was a bigger war.
And for the record, I think the Civil War was the most bloody. Is that true? Is that a real fact? Did Corona kill more people than Civil War? I don't know.
Yes.
Yes.
I think. I'm pretty sure. Still in the pandemic for the people listening in the way future.
Yeah, way future.
But I'm pretty sure coronavirus has killed probably, or COVID-19 if we're being specific. Who knows how many there have been by now.
I also would like you
But it's definitely killed more people in the United States alone than died in like the Afghanistan, Iraq, and other wars in the Middle East.
I have no concept of the people who have died during Corona or during those wars. Greg is my brain for those.
Also might cut this out, don't know.
I think it's good for people to get to know who I am. I live in just my own body. I only experience what's around me. So these are just numbers to me. People are dead. I'm not sure. I'm sorry. Okay, so there's 3 things that I wanted to mention. One is that Edith, okay, she ends up giving the whole collection to the British Museum.
For free,
which is, like, kind of crazy. But one of her requests was that Basil was included about, like, what he, publicly, I guess, or like
his
in the museum.
contribution.
Yeah,
he basically found and unearthed this discovery.
He's completely omitted for like years. We find out after they
Probably till much after he was dead, because it said that it happened like recently.
Yeah, no, it was recent. Because they actually kept the whole, I guess, like the treasure like underneath the British Museum, so it wasn't like bombed or like whatever.
It was in one of the underground stations for the entirety of the war.
Yeah, so it wasn't put on display yet. But when it was, they didn't put his name in it. It was
already on display in the 40s, and they didn't.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought they immediately put it. Whatever.
No, they immediately put it on display after World War II. Like, once everything was back up.
Yeah.
But they didn't put his name on it.
So recently. No, I know. Yeah. But what I'm... Yeah, so anyway, that's what happened. So I thought that was really fucked up. And then this is what I just read on the Wikipedia page. Apparently, Peggy was a big deal, like in real life, like the real archaeologist or whatever.
Well, was she an archaeologist? I thought she was something different.
I think in real life, she was. Wait, let me see what it says. Historical accuracy.
Because she had a specialty.
She wasn't inexperienced, though. Like, they said in the film that she was.
No. She told him...
They portrayed her as inexperienced and only hired because of her light weight. But she was an experienced archaeologist of her own right.
CW didn't know about her. She had even written, like, peer-reviewed papers and thought that that's why he hired her, was because of the fact that she was actually a known name in the game. And the only reason he hired her wasn't even because of her. It was because of her husband and the fact that she was a woman and should be a lighter weight and able to go on, like, the gentle boat. Like, gently onto the boat because the boat was fragile. But yeah, she really was, like she'd gone to school. She had, like, she...
But her husband wasn't actually much older than her. And more experienced. That was also made up for the film. So that's kind of cool. Oh, what? Apparently Nicole Kidman had originally been slated to play Miss Pretty. That's cool. Nicole Kidman?
What happened?
I don't know, but I'm just thinking of the film now as Nicole Kidman, like what it would have been like.
I mean, you might care more about Miss Pretty, but also Carey Mulligan
No, I like her a lot. No, I was just curious. Oh, and this is kind of interesting too. So Rory, the cousin's actually fictional, and the people who took pictures, 2 of them were women. Like, extensively took photographs of the site, and they were omitted from the book and film to create a romantic storyline. It's really fucked up. That's really fucked up.
Could have just made Peggy gay.
Oh, that could have been interesting. Well, I don't know.
Would have been interesting for the time.
It's less feminism, though, than I was thinking, what they were kind of pushing with the film. And also, I just wanted to say this movie's highly rated on Rotten Tomatoes, which is probably the most misleading and most fucked up thing.
But then the thing is that when you go on Rotten Tomatoes and you look at the actual critics' reviews, they don't post the whole review because it's aggregated from each of those reviewers' websites. But they put little spiels from the full review. And a lot of the reviews that were very positive didn't really have a lot of positive stuff to say in that little space. A lot of them were like, don't really know what happened in this movie, but it was okay.
Well, Rotten Tomatoes is weird like that because it just has to be fresh. Like, they don't have to be like a terribly horrible review or a terribly positive to get, you know what I mean, like rated or whatever, but like for the individual critic. But the weird thing, what was I going to say about Rotten Tomatoes? Oh, I don't know how many critics saw this film because it's not like going to the movies. So I don't know even, like, do you know?
There was a decent number.
It was a high number? And were they like top critics, like ranked by the site, or they just like kind of ranked? Like, I don't really know because like
they were from random agencies.
Okay, so it wasn't like the New York Times.
So there's 133 critics reviews.
Oh, that's still high.
If I go by top critics, there's The Spectator, The Observer from the UK, Time Magazine.
Okay.
New York Magazine.
These are real then. This is legit. The dude from New York Magazine says none of this would have worked without the presence of such fine actors. I agree with that. Not that I think it worked, but if it hadn't been for the quality of the actors, I feel like it was just so performative. Yeah, I feel like if you, just maybe it's because of the year the standards are lower too. I don't know, because it just looked like a real movie. I didn't feel that way. I don't know.
See, this is a believable review. Had the narrative stayed the course established in the early goings, it might have been unremarkable but satisfying. As it is, there's too much of the former and too little of the latter.
Sorry, that's my cat.
As in, it's very unremarkable, but not very satisfying.
Yeah, so that's the dig for you, people. Like, that's just.
But then this positive review says lots to admire, but not enough to love. Mulligan is MVP.
She is.
But that's not necessarily a good review.
Well, like I said, they don't have to be super positive to get fresh. It's just saying if it's fresh or it's or to be rotten, it's like however many. I don't know. It just depends. I don't know. I don't think Rotten Tomatoes is the best way to score a movie anyway.
Also, Peggy has the chance to have the affair with Rory before the end of the film. I want to say like 30 or 45 minutes before. One night She
didn't leave her husband yet, though. I think she verbally
told him. She hadn't left her husband yet, but she had a very emotional encounter with Rory.
Yeah.
And she has the chance to cheat with him there. Like, she has the chance...
I don't think she's that kind of
woman. To
woman.
make it go through. She doesn't do it. They break up later on, but then she immediately goes to Rory when he shows up.
I think that's fair, because at least she told her husband, like, this isn't going to work, and he kind of accepted it, and then she went off, because, like, again, people back then were supposedly more virtuous. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't even cheat now. I'm not with anyone, but I'm a hoe, and I wouldn't do it, so I believe Peggy. Like, yeah, I do. I don't really have much else.
Also, damn, you can't leave some money for Basil, bro.
Oh, that's right. She literally was like
this guy, what he made, what was it, like £2 a day or a week? I don't even.
She gave it to the museum for free, and she wasn't even like.
Might have been £2 a week. I don't even remember how much it really was, but this guy wasn't making that much money. He got like a slight raise working for her, and then she gifts it all to the museum.
I even thought that was strange because she didn't. I would have asked for money just because I knew I was going to die.
Like, yeah, how much money does her estate have that she's going to die and leave her son there being taking care of Rory, but Rory's not going to be there because he's in the middle of a war. So who's going to take care of whatever the hell her son's name was
Robert?
For free?
Well, actually, we could look this up in real life. I guess this was a true story. I was like, maybe give it to Basil, but like him and his frumpy wife. Who's frumpy?
Pretty asked his wife whether she would let Robert visit. But she seemed kind of like peeved about it.
Yeah.
And also maybe just adopt a kid. I don't know. Both parents dead. You two clearly don't look like you're ever going to have kids. But like Basil kind of likes him. Robert definitely likes Basil.
I also feel like they're older too. Like Basil's old.
They were both old and just weird.
Yeah, but Carey Mulligan.
He was weird.
Well, yeah.
Basil was weird.
Yeah. He was weird.
He was just he like the human version of a mole. Like a mole rat, like digging through the dirt. Very like anti-personal.
I don't know.
What's wrong?
Sorry, my cat is being super affectionate all of a sudden. She's like ignored me all day. Like I don't even know why she's doing. I'm not even really on good terms with my cat. Like that. She's gained a lot of weight, and she's
rude.
I'm a little over her, and I really want a dog, and I can't get one until she passes. So I guess she's Miss Pretty. It's like a not pretty Miss Pretty.
Except fat instead of like a failing heart.
Yeah, I'm jealous of Carey Mulligan. She has such a thin frame. I don't even know how she maintains it.
Anything else?
No, I think that's good for our first episode. I mean, hopefully...
What would you give this movie out of 10?
What would you give this podcast episode out of 10? That's a good question, too.
But also, I asked you a question.
Oh, me? I thought you were asking the viewers.
I'm asking you. We're never going to hear back from them.
No, you can leave comments and yeah, that's when we get feedback.
We're not going to hear back from them now.
We don't know when you'll hear... I'm here for you.
What would you rate this movie
out of 10?
You want it out of 100? You need a bigger scale?
No. Oh, fuck. I mean, I guess 5 is just like a mediocre movie, right? Like.
But did it make you feel like you wasted your time?
That's the real question.
Because
I'll tell you that.
That brings it down.
I watch movies through a few lenses because I went to film school. I don't know if we let you know about this in the intro, but like,
Probably.
I went to film school. So I look at things as a filmmaker. I look at things through film criticism because I actually really liked doing all that stuff too. Theory, history, criticism, whatever.
I'm just some guy.
But yeah, he was smart. but the last lens is just as someone who wants to be entertained. Like I fell in love with movies because I liked being entertained. Was this entertaining? No. That's the biggest offense.
And that has to bring it below a 5.
Yeah.
Because a 5 is something that you can watch and be entertained, but either not have anything to take away from it or not have it been really memorable, but you didn't feel like you wasted your time
while watching it. Like at least it commanded some sort of attention. I guess I have to give it a 4 only because it was so technically well done. I guess I have to give it a 4.
Well, because the camera work was good.
Yeah, we talked about it.
The set design was good.
I have to give it a 4. What do
the
I want?
Acting was good.
I will reluctantly give it a 4. Can I say that? It's a reluctant 4.
It could have been a 6 or a 7, but yeah, I think for me it's a 4 too.
It's a reluctant 4.
And they're lucky that it's not lower.
It's
not that they're lucky about anything because our review doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But it's a 4.
It's a 4. Reluctant 4 though, which means there's probably better movies you could watch that have all those things right, plus they're entertaining. So really, should you watch it? No. Unless you're like super invested in like this particular historical find for whatever reason.
And it also wasn't as long as I thought it was. It was only an hour and 52 minutes, but it felt like 2.5 hours.
It felt like 3 for me, so I'm glad that it only felt like that long for
I almost didn't know it was even that short.
I knew it was 2 hours. I saw it earlier and I was like, fuck.
It was an hour and 52 minutes.
Yeah, it's almost 2 hours. It's close.
Credits. Like, this movie was bad, guys. Sorry.
Don't watch it.
I mean, watch it if you want. Like, or maybe you've already watched it and that's why you're listening to this to just talk shit with somebody else. Or maybe you really like this movie and we're assholes. I don't know. But it's a 4.
Yeah. I mean, I feel strongly. But, like, again, we don't matter. So, however you feel about it, and leave comments, even if you're, like, 2 years ahead. I don't know. Maybe someone will find this in some sort of archaeological dig. Like, maybe you'll be an alien, like, 1,000 years from now.
Maybe you'll find a hard drive in a time capsule on the barren post-apocalyptic version of Earth.
Yeah.
And you'll want to listen to 2 random, long-deceased humans talk about a movie that really wasn't that great.
I probably didn't die. I only died probably a few years from now. Just so you know. He lived a long life.
That's why you'd be long-deceased.
I'd be longer than you, though.
I would be, too. The world's gone.
Yeah. No, I'm just letting them know. This is one of my last things.
All right, guys. Catch you on the next film.
Bye.